Welcome back, everyone, to Hail Xal'atath, this time with sound. Uh, I'm not sure what episode this is, but we are planning on discussing the Midnight Campaign. I am joined, as always, by True Villamani. Very good to see you, as always. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay, as nobody heard before, but we're doing it again. I am of two minds. I love Midnight. I love all the things that we were doing right now. I am scared that I'm going to go into burnout, but at the same time, just I feel like I geared so quickly, and the outdoor content doesn't hold the same bite as it used to, and I'm mourning the loss of danger in the world.
Whereas I did not enjoy that brief period between level 86 and 90 where everything is such a chore. I hate it when it's a chore. I don't mind it when it's challenging, like what I'm hoping Nightmare Mode of Prey is going to bring to the table. But when it's, you can still essentially survive, you just have to chip down that health. Ugh, I just find that so tedious and boring. So I'm quite enjoying feeling quite powerful.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. I play enhancement shaman, and I am playing a affliction warlock. So I agree with you that when you have the tankiness to survive it, and it is just a matter of whittling down, that is not the same way. But when you are a fragile, shieldless enhancement shaman, and you got the damage, but you need to like make sure you keep your health bar up, it is a thrill that I enjoyed, and maybe that's just because enhancement defensives suck. Good news. There's hope coming for that in the future, but you have to look at the 12.0.5 patch notes for that. But as you said, we're talking about the leveling campaign today, and specifically Arendar.
Yeah, and I have to say, this is the first expansion I have done the most achievements in this early on. With the War Within, I didn't even do the achievements where there's rares in the War Within that I still haven't killed, I still haven't bothered with. But with Midnight, I have two of the kill all the rares in the zone achievements. I'm busy working on the third one. And that is because this time there is the core associated to some of these things. And boy, the things I will do for decor. And that is why you're not doing these achievements, Manny, because you don't care about decor.
It's not that I don't care about the core. I gotta say that housing uh, was a sleeper hit for me. I was on the alpha. I didn't touch it. We talked about it before. I'm like, I got other things to do, and I do have other things to do. But that doesn't take away from the fact that housing is fantastic, right? And I genuinely mean that. There are times where I wish there were two of me so that I could raid and do housing, and maybe a third one to actually do a job. So but then I feel like that third one would be getting the short stick. So maybe we do shifts. But I do enjoy housing. I do think that is awesome. I love collecting various decor. I wish I could go back to my place and do a little bit more setup. But I do love watching your streams when you're going through not just your house, but some of the other houses that you check out.
Oh
That is
my
just like,
word.
oh my goodness. What was it? That greenhouse? The one where like the whole wall was like up to the ceiling with like windows, and you like get lost going through the rooms. That was a beautiful place.
It was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, yeah, and that is my favorite thing to do in the game now is go visit people's houses and walk around. Like, it's mind blowing. Um, well, I'm so glad that you're also enjoying housing. That's something I've loved to see about it is seeing people who weren't so sure about it actually really finding they're getting into it. How great is the fact that we get decor as quest rewards during the leveling campaign, though, I've got to say, because, like, for me, you level through a zone, you do these quests, you get this nice little tidy amount of decor that is beautifully associated with the zone. So it's like decor that reflects the zone. And then when you're done, you go to your house and you put up your decor. And like there's this visual reminder of this experience you had in the game. I mean, that is just remarkable, I feel.
I think it's really cool. It makes me feel somewhat sad about the lack of stuff that was with old expansions, but I am hoping and praying that they take full advantage of time walking weeks and they start tossing that stuff in. Because yeah, I do love stuff that they've done with the Amani. I love the stuff that they've done with Silvermoon. I am somewhat liking the stuff that they're doing in the Voidstorm. I have I have reservations about Herondar decor, but whatever. Um, and yeah, I want that for the whole game. I love that it is part of the leveling campaign, and like you said, you do get this stuff. It is a reminder of journeys you've taken, which is what housing should be when they were talking about meeting players where they are. Uh, this is a really great way of doing it. I think maybe they went a little overboard with the housing through the level up campaign, but it's the new hotness, so I'll give them some. I'll give them some leniency on that. I don't think it was so much that I was sick of it, but it did seem like wow, there's a lot here.
Oh, I don't think they gave me enough. There were times when they told me to choose between decor instead of just giving me both decor items. Like, come on.
Yeah, that should be like equipment where like you don't lock the various transmog behind a quest, so I have to come back. Why am I
Exactly.
having to come back to do the core? I agree with you on that one. I'll say that's true.
And sometimes they're giving me like sometimes they're giving me gear. Sometimes they're giving me I don't know, a cloak or something. And I look at it and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I can't put this on my wall. What is this? Take this away. Bring me a table, please.
You vendor it for gold to pay for your upgrades. Because
Oh
what with us,
yes.
we have to pay for upgrades now.
I don't mind that. Anything to get rid of valor stones. Have my gold. Take my gold. I'm fine with that. I'm so happy with that change as well. Valor stones were a nightmare.
I agree with you. I just I poke fun at the people who don't agree. I just feel like it's an entire conversation, and I feel like there's a lot of bad faith actors. But we're not talking
Okay.
about that. We're not going into that.
Okay.
Can of
Let's get
worms.
back into law. Obviously, I've moved things to housing because that tends to be what I do. But yes, we were going to talk about the level up campaign. So, and the zones.
Yes. Now, the reason that I wanted to focus on Herondar, I know a lot of people have gone through the level up campaign, but there are some people who haven't. There's a lot of local stories that are out there that I think are really cool. They've done a great job yet again with local stories. Um, but I think that Harandar is actually a weak point for this. I think that the local stories in Harandar don't quite match up. I think that the general story for Harandar, including the when you make your own uh, version, whatever, if you want it to be a druid or shaman or anything, I think that like that starting experience, it's also kind of missing the level of storytelling that I've seen from other starting experiences. And so there's a big reason for that, and it's becoming glaringly obvious. And it's that Harndar is a zone out of place and out of time in my mind.
And it's very funny that Harandar is very clearly a war within zone. I mean, it's underground for a start, but there's more to it than that. First of all, in early data mining of the War Within, there was a zone called the Rootlands. I think it was meant to be a patch zone, so it would have been maybe the first patch before we got Undermine, first major patch. But there's also an area in Azkahed, and we have spoken about this on the podcast before, that there's an area in Azkahet that's got roots very similar looking to what I'm pointing at in the sky right now. That if you fly up through it, your camera phases out and you're basically teleported away. And that is something that happens, it's happening right now in Zulaman if you try to fly to that island. That is something that happens when that's an area that's going to be added, you just can't get there yet. It's something that happened with the Emerald Dream in Dragonflight as well. So that was supposed to very clearly be the entrance to Harrendar. There's a lot of the Harrendar story as well. Some of it is tied into what's going on in Silvermoon and Midnight, but some of it is the story about the goddess who was, again, I'm pointing up at this root system in the sky, the goddess that used to be inside those roots but isn't anymore. And that really reframes a lot of things we know about Halofor and that light in the sky. That crystal, and the fact that we know that crystal has something to do with Azeroth as well, but from light instead of life. Whereas these roots in Harrendar, these are the roots of the original world tree that was planted on Azeroth. It's Gahania? No, that's the mother world tree. But this is from the original world tree that was Alunahar. That's the world tree name. Then, obviously, the War Within introduction cinematic, it features the Earthen of the Ringing Deeps, it features Farron and the Halofor, it features the Nerubians, and it features Orwena and what is very clearly Harrendar. And throughout the War Within, people kept going, what's going on with Orwena? What's going on with the Haranir? It's very clearly, people kept saying it was cut content because you could tell it was supposed to be part of the story and it wasn't. But it was never cut content, it was moved content. And the place that they moved it to was Midnight. And it is funny because the story of these roots is that this tree was planted and then ripped out of Azeroth. And that's exactly what happened to Harrendar. It was planted in the War Within story and then ripped out and transplanted into the Midnight story, and it has left a bit of damage. The War Within felt very disjointed, very unfocused. There was definitely something missing. You could feel throughout that story something was missing. Now we know what it was. It was Harrendar. And I agree with you about Harrendar, although I will say I haven't actually watched I haven't actually played through a lot of the side quests. I have heard what people have said about the side quests, though I'm focusing on Eversong Wood side quests initially. But just from my interactions in Harrendar, I absolutely agree it doesn't quite fit in Midnight in a way that it clearly would have in The War Within. I know Portagorge on Twitter pointed out that there's even world quests where they talk about Bran wanted you to get this or that, because of course Bran was our Delver companion in the War Within, and they haven't changed that. So like even things like that are very clearly remnants from the War Within. Apparently there's Nerubians here. I haven't seen them, but apparently there are. And yeah, it's a lot of War Within themes. It does make me wonder why they felt it needed to be in this expansion instead. And I think that's probably because it's going to have something to do with the lead up into The Last Titan, and they wanted it closer to that story.
Yeah, I mean, it's a known fact that the War Within was further into development when they pivoted to making the World Soul Saga, and so obviously when they made adjustments, it wasn't clean. You do have the world quest where you are taking pictures because Bran would like to know more about it. You have Gazlo who shows up to hang out with his buddy Orwena, and it's like, well, Gazlo's not relevant to the story anymore. What's he do? What's he doing here? And it's all of these things that are sort of transplanted in that's there. The fact that
Um,
as you are, sorry, go ahead.
you have an add-on that's going off in the background. I'm wondering if you can.
I
Sorry.
can. I can. No worries. It's it's one of the few add-ons that that I still have, but like yeah, it's it is a it is a thing where I guess it's a matter of time that they took to adjust things. Some things kind of make sense, like hey, look, Gaslow isn't really central right now, so he can visit or when it makes sense that some of these characters would be like, hey, like listen, things are handled in my neck of the woods. Let me support the person who supported me. So like, it's there, but like because you also know how they work, they don't record voice lines if they aren't gonna really use the character. You can see that it's displaced. My hope is that they can, as they move forward, bring it more into the story more completely and before the last Titan. But because some things you can't, it would they took it out because obviously it was more tied to the war within than with Midnight, but it also cost them to make new stuff. I think that's partially why it feels like a little hollow, and I don't mean hollow fall. I mean like Harindar, the Rootlands, feels a little hollow in places.
I am not a big fan of the Harandar, of the Haranir, I've got to say. And I've really, really been struggling with this. I'm beginning to warm up to them a little bit. I think what clicked for me is they are very clearly meant to be the Dark Trolls. I've seen some debate about that because actually the lore is confusing because sometimes they say that they're the ancestors. Sometimes they say they're trolls, sometimes they say they're elves, sometimes they say they're an ancestor, sometimes they say they're not. I think what they've done is they've taken what was kind of pretty bad, like a pretty bad lore with the whole Dark Trolls thing, because the implications that elves are better than trolls. And they created this common ancestor creature. I do wish they had done it a bit more elegantly. I don't think it makes sense that all this time they've been hidden and quiet and we haven't seen anything, heard anything of them. And, you know, they got to Harandar, found the goddess that they were following all the way. They got here, she's not here, and they went, oh, guess we'll give up. Guess we'll stay here for the rest of our lives. Like, I realize not everyone did that, but like, I think that's pretty weird that at no point did they, as a community who had gone so far to follow this goddess, at no point did they say, well, maybe we should keep looking. They just said, okay, I guess we live here now. And there's a lot of like little things like that that bug me about the Haranir. But I do think it is a victim of this writing that has had to be sort of, they're doing their best, I think, to try and make it make sense. And it's a little bit put together and it's a little bit, they change things on the fly. I mean, the name, the spelling of their name has changed since they introduced them, which I always remember when they try to pretend that these are this ancient race of people. It's like, no, you're not. Your spelling isn't even ancient.
Yeah, and I find when they do these things where it's like, oh, we're isolationists, but we're not so isolationist that we're not aware of everything, so you don't have to bring us up to speed. We already know everything. We're just going to fill you in. It's obviously just a contrivance for the expedience of storytelling. And unfortunately, it causes just damage because the fact that nobody's seen them before, the fact that they had druidism, or did they have druidism before the elves gained druidism, and all of these sort of things that you now have to like kind of MacGuffin away, and then also why didn't they get involved with all these other things? Because like, yes, they're like, oh man, Teldrassil, it burnt, and that caused us so much damage, and we're like, well, why didn't we do anything? But it's like, that ain't the first world tree that's gone awry, friends. There have been many failed world trees before this, so I
Yeah.
am not sure why this is the one that you felt it was impactful enough.
And world trees whose roots were contaminated by the void, the roots themselves, that didn't raise any concern. I mean, I have seen, I think Noble pointed out that the guy who was in charge of the world tree who got contaminated by the void, by the old gods, also turns out to be the bad guy. So he was suggesting that that's why. It's like maybe he is actually a bit corrupted in that sense. Although the story itself doesn't really, suggest that. But I do like that as a concept of he's being corrupted because the roots were corrupted. And while they've tried to say, oh, it doesn't really matter, it did. But it is weird. It's like, oh, your tree was on fire. The roots are still on fire. And you didn't feel the need to do anything. But a little bit of light bloom in Eversong Woods, and after a short confrontation, suddenly this ancient society who has stayed underground for tens of thousands of years are suddenly ready to come to the surface. Again, I don't find it... I'm finding it a very hard sell. I think they know that what they're doing here is trying to sell something that's not believable. And everyone knows it's not really believable. And we're all just having to suspend our disbelief for the sake of the story. And like at the end of the day, I'm going to have to do that because, the Haranir here, have no problem with the Haranir players. I mean, the customizations are absolutely beautiful. I absolutely welcome the Haranir as a playable race for sure. But yeah, at some point, I'm like... all I can do is go, well, I guess we just have to suck it up and pretend to believe it because what's the other option? To sort of dwell on it for the rest of the game.
I think that what the Harandar, the Harati, whichever different version they want to use, the people of the Rootlands, I think what I look at more is how much they can bend the lore and what they need to do differently in the future. We have seen some things that they've introduced, and I actually thought it was pretty cool. We've seen some things that have very much flopped. Like, obviously, the Shadowlands had a lot of retcon that did not land properly. And if you're going into this world of Azeroth where they're really painted themselves into a corner, the Burning Legion has destroyed every other world and there's only Azeroth left as the last world. That's a really small corner to paint yourself into, and that's why they kind of had to go to like alternate dimensions.
Yeah,
Sorry, I thought you... Go ahead.
I agree that it depends on, like, sometimes a retcon is good and even important. The idea that retcons are inherently bad was a really toxic attitude that was unfortunately created partially due to how badly it was handled in the Shadowlands. And then almost as it's almost like a shorthand of, oh, the story is bad, which was true, because retcon. Which is like, well, in this case, yes, but retcons aren't always bad. A lot of retcons have needed to be done.
Warcraft 3 was filled with retcons.
Oh, yeah.
People, like, if you're looking at the Night Elves and their connection to the High Elves and therefore Blood Elves, that's all retroactive continuity. Right? Like, to have the demons actually having been the force behind the Horde is a retcon. World of Warcraft is retcons upon retcons, and to like focus on one and say, well, all retcons are bad is just like it's sample picking. It's bad logic. Yeah. So what I am looking for from Harandar, like kind of am pinning my hopes on the Legends of Herondar to help fill in some of the gaps and hopefully reveal some story that they didn't really want to put forward because it is so integral to where they're going later. As well as we get further into the story of Midnight, to have the Herondar become more relevant, because they did have a story that they were going to tell in the War Within, and that story clearly isn't being told in this initial offering of Midnight.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll ever properly revisit that story or if they rewrote it completely. I mean, it's also possible that they decided the story wasn't fit for purpose, and I mean, how I would love to know why they moved it. It was very clearly a decision that happened late enough in the game, in development, for the Haranir to have already featured prominently in the War Within cinematic. And as someone mentioned in the chat, even Harandar's music has War Within music in it. So I mean, this zone was done, you would assume. It was when the game was done, the zone was done. It must have been not too long before the alpha hit the PTR. So I would love to know why they moved it and what changes were made and why. But unfortunately, it's one of those questions that you'll never get an answer. I mean, there was that recent round of interviews where everyone kept asking them, basically, did you move the Haranir? And they couldn't say yes or no. They're not going to admit to that, even though everyone can see it. It's not something they're going to talk about.
Yeah. I think the closest example I can point to is the open secret of a missing raid tier in Warlords of Draenor. Why was that removed? What was in it? We never heard. And we are now at the point in time where Warlords of Draenor, there's more time before Warlords of Draenor. There's like Warlords of Draenor is a halfway point now, or Legion's the halfway point of like the existence of WoW. That's how far we've gone. And still, there's all that time, basically a decade. If we're at 20 years, basically a decade, and we still don't know the story. So I think it's going to be one of those things where, unless some like ex-developer decides to tell the story, we're never going to know.
Yeah.
But that said, they did decide to include it in Midnight. They did decide to have them pulled in with this light bloom conflict. And it could have been that if they weren't going to be used until the Last Titan, that they could have left them out up until that point. Unless for some reason they decided that we're just like, we've got the work done for it. We're going to throw it into this expansion, which would be the worst decision. The worst reason to make such a decision. Maybe not the worst decision if they could make it work, but it would be utterly non-serving for the story to do that. And I'm looking at the fact that we've got a single boss raid coming up that will be opening up next week. Mm-hmm. But on top of that, we're immediately going back for another raid in the near future, which is not part of the three that's part of this initial offering. And that to me gives me hope, because that means that, hey, listen, like the Herondar story is still going to be, or at least the Herondar zone and people are still going to be a part of it. Story-wise, I'm not sure. We don't know that far ahead. But that does give me hope that there is more to go through here. And so I'd like to think that obviously with the Rift of Uln and their goddess being torn out and moved somewhere else, this to me feels like one of two things. One, I think the one that is most obvious is that the World Soul itself was in this area
Surging totem.
and then was moved away.
Hot hand.
Interruptible cast.
Sorry, I've got text to talk
lightning.
that might be coming through.
Yeah, it's fine.
Anyways, so was moved away in order to put it in the manifold. And like that makes total sense when you look at what we had with the Earthen and their story, and like finding out about the manifold and it used to like protect the world soul from all of these other forces that might influence it. And so yeah, this would be showing the damage that the Titans wrought when they decided to put it in its place in the nice little order that they did. They don't care about the damage otherwise. And so that's what I think. The other tinfoil hat theory that pops into my head is, well, we've also had one other historically ripped out of Azeroth being, and that is one of the old god, Y'Shaarj. And when you look at the nightmare creatures that are left there, boy, do they look Shaw. And wouldn't it be absolutely a trip if the goddess that they were hunting for and the one that was speaking to them was in fact the old god that is now dead?
It is certainly, I've seen that theory. It is a great theory. It's a lot of fun. I don't subscribe to it because I think if Harandar had come out with the War Within, we would have gotten, this theory would have had better legs. But the thing is, the War Within came out first and already fully established that it is the voice of Azeroth. The goddess, unless Owaina is the only one talking to Azeroth and everyone else happens to be communicating with Y'Shaarj. But Owaina, when she speaks to a goddess, it's Azeroth. Azeroth led her to the Black Blood in Undermine. Azeroth, it's the Radiant Whispers. The Rift of Alm have the same dream creatures that were the part of the War Within pre-patch. That's the memories of Azeroth. So I do think that it's Azeroth and not Y'Shaarj. But I do still love the theory. I think it's a great one. What I find really interesting about the question of the goddess, I mean, it took me a while because first it took me about a week to wrap my head around the fact that the Harandar got here, goddess isn't here. They went, okay, well, we live here now anyway. How do you just give up the search? How do you just announce that this goddess that you've been worshipping for thousands of years has never been here? You never met her. You never found her. She was never here. Anyway, as you say, the theory, it seems to be indicating very clearly that what has happened is the goddess has been removed from the spot and placed inside the manifold. And for this, we need to go back again to the book about Aluna here and how that story goes. Because what happens in Aluna here, in that book, the world has been corrupted by the old gods. And the Titans have arrived and are fighting the old gods. So this is during the time of the Black Empire. And to help heal the earth, I think they defeated the old gods, but to help heal Azeroth, to help heal the earth, Eonar planted a branch from Gahanir that was given to her by Elune. And that branch became the first world tree on Azeroth that all other world trees come from. But what is the other Titan? The leader of the Titans. Amenthal got really angry and said to her, "This is not order, it's chaos," and ripped the tree out of Azeroth and threw it away. But he didn't see that the roots stayed. And Eonar saw, but she didn't say anything. Now, presumably after that, the Titans took the world soul and put it in the manifold. But now we know that this tree was used to case the world soul first. So was that the life equivalent of the manifold, encasing the world soul in order to nurture it and make it a creature of life? I mean, a being of life. And like we know, ANR is very strongly associated with life despite being a Titan. Possibly she should have been a life. She was supposed to be someone from life, the pantheon of life, and not a Titan. But this also raises more questions about that crystal, that glowing crystal in Halafor, and what the light were doing with Azeroth's world soul, because those shards are both Azeroth's world soul and the cosmological force of light. So that's all three major cosmological forces, the positive side aspects of all three major cosmological forces doing something with the world soul. So there's clearly something going on here about containing the world soul. And as we are aware, the world soul is currently in, well, as we believe, the world soul is currently in the manifold the Titans have it. Which, again, I find it so weird that this world soul is being knocked around inside the earth, that people are picking it up and moving it around. Like, how does that work? But okay, sure, why not? And obviously this whole conspiracy that we're going to uncover in The Last Titan has got to do with this. I do wonder if part of the reason why Harandar was moved is because otherwise we would have all of this world soul discussion in The War Within, and then we'd have all of Midnight where they don't mention it at all, and then suddenly with The Last Titan we go back to the world soul. Is it possible, like maybe they wanted a continuous line of this particular story so that we didn't jump to it, you know, from one expansion to the next, skipping an expansion? Like maybe that's what the idea was. I still think it's a shame. I really think the Harania story is a lot more interesting in context of what we know in Halafor. And I think that there's a lot of similarities that we'd be drawing on if they were side by side. I don't think it's quite fitting. They're trying to make it fit in Midnight. I don't think it's quite working. But yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I think that when the team for so long, and again, this is the first time they've been doing a trilogy, but the team for so long has been doing the expansions as almost standalone with a little bit of lead into the next expansion. Completely standalone all the way through to Mr. Pandaria, lead-ins from like Warlord to current, and this is the first time we're doing a trilogy. And when you look at how things led from Mists of Pandaria into Warlords, it was pretty weak and haphazard. It wasn't quite the same sort of lead-in. And I think that same sort of growing pains is happening with this first trilogy. So I appreciate that when Xal'atath is coming to bear against Azeroth, she's not just another force looking for the soul of Azeroth. That would have been very much like the Jailer, and maybe the Jailer would have been well done by being part of a true trilogy. And so, like, if you put it there, put her in that frame where it's like, oh, if we had engaged with and defeated Xal'atath within the space of one expansion, would she be anywhere near as good as she is right now? And I don't think so. So I do believe that there has been benefits from them moving it to a trilogy. But Harandar seems to be part of the cost of that. The fact that it has lost a lot of the connective tissue from where it was and is now set aside in this plot where it feels very much grafted in is hurting both the Harandar zone and the people within it. But I do love the animals and all the vegetation and the biome of it. I do think that they did a good job of then somewhat replicating that into Silvermoon. So Harandar and Silvermoon, I think that like those zones feel pretty connected. Other than the fact that Harandar, you have to go through a portal to get to it, and that really does make it feel off on its own. I kind of wish they had done a little bit more with the zone to like make it a better connection to the rest of the world, even if it was like a hole that I fly down into and then it warps over
You
rather than
mean
just a flat out portal.
the original plan, as we could clearly
Yeah.
see in the War Within? Uh,
Yeah.
I do agree. I think Harandar is a gorgeous zone. I think it is an absolutely beautiful War Within zone. I don't think I'm ever going to fully see it as a midnight zone. And I think in the future, when people are doing recommendations for storyline playthroughs, you'll get guides that go, okay, do this in the War Within, and then go do this in Harandar. While we're on the subject, someone on Twitter, on Blue Sky, I think it was Port Gorge again, suggested using the inky black potion in Harandar, and you really see how the zone was almost designed to be dark. It's supposed to be dark with luminescence, the luminescent mushrooms lighting it up, and it's actually just remarkable when it's dark. And like if it was originally meant to be closer to the actual center of the planet, if it had been darker and part of the War Within we're going even further down, I think it would have been breathtaking. Whereas with Midnight, it's just as you say, oh, there's this portal, you take it and you're in this land. You don't know where it is. They haven't been able to be clear about where it is. It's just somewhere underground. And you don't really get that feeling of center of the earth that I feel this could have been the journey to the center of the earth zone. And I honestly feel taking it out of the War Within's theme of continuing to go further out underground really did damage the War Within, actually. There's a lot about the War Within that I feel is missed opportunity. And I can only assume it's got to do with this situation of things being unfinished, them deciding to move things around. But yeah.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention something quickly.
Go ahead.
The subject of the world soul. There is a treasure that I just found now. You know the hole in the den, the center of the place that you visit. Like when you arrive in Harandar, that's where you go through the portal.
Yeah.
So there is a chest that will spawn there, but you have to go to 3 different altars and meditate at the altars. And the first altar is a child, the second one's a hunter, the third one's an old lady. And the old lady talks about when we die, our soul basically goes back. I mean, she basically says we are Azeroth. That when we die, our soul returns to Azeroth, the world soul, and then we may join it again, or we may be reborn. You know, fairly typical sort of pagan view on Gaia, that kind of thing, and deity. But like, that's potentially saying that one of the reasons why we're so powerful, because we already know our world is so powerful, is because all of us, well, maybe not the orcs, all of the people who are from Azeroth have a shard of Azeroth's world soul in them, which I think, like, I don't know if that's going to be a thing or if it's just some flavor, but I think that's very interesting.
I think that it is a nice belief that follows through with the connection to the world that that like is part of Harati believes. I don't think mechanically it works, just because, like, yeah, you point out the orcs. We could like easily say like, okay, well, every single one of the like races that come from not Azeroth, like the Draenei, the Eridar, all of that have like shown remarkable strength. Why aren't they? Why are they not so equally as powerful, right? Oh, they spent more time on Azeroth, and it's like, well, no, like
Not
it's just
necessarily.
we always rise to the threat level of whatever's we're facing, right?
I do think that if there's going to be a retcon that I'm betting
Doom
money
wins.
on, it's going to be
Surging totem.
we're going to discover
Crash
that
lightning.
Outland or Draenor
Hothead.
did have a world soul.
cast.
I know
Surging
that they've
totem.
categorically said it didn't. I think we're going to discover that it did. And there was some conspiracy there as well. It was stolen or something like that, or
Crash
locked
lightning.
away and died
Interruptible cast.
during the whole thing. But I think we're going to find that out. I don't think they can square what they've been doing with world souls and have the orcs come from a world that didn't have one. I don't think it works.
Hot hand.
I would. Oh man,
Crash
I
lightning.
could see it happening. I feel like as long as they continue to throw all this importance
Interruptible cast.
Crash lightning.
against against
lightning.
like world soul realms, because of course like we had Argus being a world soul, and it's like, oh my goodness, like it
Doom
was like
wins.
the last. Wow, was that the last Titan?
Surging
It's the
totem.
current last Titan.
Surging totem. Hot hand.
Interruptible cast.
So like
Crash lightning.
I think as long as we continue to do this World Soul Saga and put so much stock with having people actually do
Crash lightning.
things around that
Interruptible
ability,
cast.
you are going to have to eventually make some sort of connection therefore. But again, I think that is a connection that is limiting. It becomes like something you have to start writing around. Then all future races that you introduce
hand.
must have a connection to
Interruptible
some
cast.
sort of world soul. Like that's
Crash
a
lightning.
MacGuffin that writes you into a corner. And we started this by saying, hey, stop writing yourself into a corner. So I'd rather they not do that.
I think whatever direction. I mean, I think the whole cosmological chart started the writing yourself into a corner
Doom
thing.
wins.
There's so many little things that,
Surging
oh,
totem.
now you have to do this, now you have to
Crash
do
lightning.
that.
Surging
Yeah.
totem.
Everything has to be connected to one of the greater powers. There are like all these
Interruptible cast.
forces that are
lightning.
beyond the veil of reality that have intentions upon our world. So we're waiting for like the life
Crash
villain.
lightning.
And what
Crash
have we had done
lightning.
any other villains? I guess there's got to be something bigger than the Titans,
Interruptible
right?
cast.
Because the Titans are within our realm of reality, but are not the ultimate power of reality. So we've got to deal with that now.
Yep.
So I think you're right. You're
Crash
right
lightning.
there.
Interruptible cast.
The
Crash
issue
lightning.
was Chronicles all along.
It was always Chronicles all along. Chronicles was bad. The best thing they ever did was give it a soft retcon. I'm sorry.
Interruptible
A lot
cast.
of it you still can't fully. I mean, you
Crash
can't
lightning.
retcon it all, and that's fine. But it shouldn't
Surging
be
totem.
irrefutable canon. There's a lot about Chronicles that just isn't that good. But on
Yeah,
that,
like
Interruptible cast.
you are right.
Interruptible
You are
cast.
right there. I think that the further they can get away from Chronicles, the better off they will be.
I think what we're seeing with Midnight so far is they're trying to emphasize balance as that's their big thing. They like their balance. Plotline, this is what we're seeing with the light at the moment, is the light is fine. Like, I think people are being confused by the story in a way that is completely unnecessary, where they go, but I don't understand. I thought the void was bad, but now the light's bad. How is that possible? Like, but there's all these people who are good who use the light. So what is it? Is it good or is it bad? And I think that's a really shallow way of looking at it. In the same as the void, we have had warlocks and shadow priests and people who use dark magic since the beginning of World of Warcraft. And there's always been this theme of, yes, it's very dangerous and you can lose yourself to it, absolutely. But there's also been a theme of, but you can wield it and be a good person. I suppose there's debate about that. Some people will argue, no, there's no real good shadow priests. There's no real good warlocks. They're lying. But I feel that World of Warcraft has always tried to sort of have characters who aren't all good or all evil, or like universally these are the good guys, universally these are the bad guys. That's the whole thing. It's like the orcs aren't all evil. They started out being the baddies, the stereotypical baddies, but they're hero characters as the story progressed. It's like a very strong World of Warcraft theme. And I think now they're trying to explore it from the different way of, instead of saying, well, just because someone's using the void, like Ilaria, doesn't mean they're a bad person. They're saying, well, just because someone's using the light doesn't mean that's inherently good. And the light, they're really fully exploring this whole, you can be too blinded by the light. Too much light is bad for you in the same way as too much void, too much fel. Maybe not exactly the same way. You can get away with a lot more light, I think, before you start turning into what we've been seeing from Terralion lately. Whereas void it happens much sooner that you get fully corrupted like that. So that it's not like it's equal amounts for all of the forces. But clearly the ultimate storyline with Azeroth especially is going to be that she needs to have it all or have a balance of all of it. And you can't say one, you can't cut out one, you can't get rid of one. And that includes the light, in that we're not supposed to now think the light is bad. It clearly isn't. There's people who are following the light who are very clearly good characters. Alonza's Fowl is probably my favorite in Midnight, but also Liadrin. I like when she directly says to Terralion, no, it's not Terralion. I think she says it to someone else, but she basically says, we follow the light very differently. She basically calls them out.
That. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was one of the Army of the Elite generals.
Oh, the big woman.
Words.
I love the big woman. Oh man, that woman. She's huge. She's just this massive. She towers over everyone. It's like someone took her and went scale up, and she's just this giant woman. And she's covered in light. And every time I see her, I'm like, this is the sort of woman people used to worship. She's so cool. I love her. And then she starts talking, and she's the worst person. She's such a bigot. She's just awful. She leaves me with a lot of conflicted feelings. But yeah, sorry, slight side tangent there. But that is pretty much what Liadrin says. As you say, she calls her out and basically calls her out for being a zealot.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the light needs is reformers. It's not going to be the void teaching light users what they need to be doing, except for here and there. It's people who use the light need to call out their own and reform their church, basically. They need Martin Luther to come nail some theses to a church door.
I think that in real life, it is best that people call out other people within their community, that we hold the people around us accountable, the people who are like us accountable, because they would be most receptive to hearing it from somebody who shares values and similarities with them. However, in the World of Warcraft, I don't believe that will be the case. I think we are about to see a lot of zealotry, a lot of people becoming light blind, and I think that it is good on Blizzard and good on storytelling that it is coming from within the house and not simply being like, oh, Yrel and the Lightbound from that alternate reality that isn't us. It's those other people. They're the evil light. It's no longer the Scarlet Crusade and them abusing the light. It is something inherent in how the light can twist you and blind you to horrors that you will commit against your own community, against your own blood. But that is a different leveling story, and we'll have to talk about it another time.
We'll have to. I think we have been going on for about an hour now. So if we keep going, we will end up talking for 2 more hours easily. So I'm thinking maybe we should wrap up. Are there any last thoughts you have about Midnight so far?
Despite my misgivings about Harandar and everything else, I am still overwhelmingly happy with the Midnight storyline. I do hold hope that they will bring the Harnar more into focus and validate their their existence in the story in future patches, but time will tell.
I very much agree. I have to admit, Harandar and the Voidstorm are both zones I don't like. I like Harandar, but I see it as a good War Within zone, not a good Midnight zone. And the Voidstorm, we'll see. Maybe, I've heard the side quests are great. Maybe the side quests will make me enjoy it a little bit more. For now, all I can think is Koresh was better though. And, you know. But Eversong Woods and Zulaman is enough to feed me. Those zones are just so good. I love those storylines. I'm interested in where the story is going in Harandar and in the Voidstorm. And I'm very curious to see how it's all going to wrap up together. And it is nice knowing that after this expansion, we're going into the last Titan. So they won't, hopefully the story is going to be getting tighter. It will be these plot lines that are very clearly all were supposed to start far away from each other are going to start getting closer and closer to each other in a way that you can start to understand, that's why we have this storyline. That's why we've brought these people in. That's why it's all part of this overarching story, and now we can see how it is, you know. Hopefully we'll see more of that. So far, I'm having a good time. I very much enjoyed the new chapter that we got to play through this week, but as you say, we'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, give us people a little more time to catch up on story before we start explaining end game things. But this was something that was. I'll give you guys a little spoiler on what I'm thinking. The fact that it happened so early is a good thing. And I'll explain what I meant by that when we talk about it next time.
Well, on that intriguing note, I think this has been very great. Thank you so much for joining me, True Villamani. Where can people find you?
So, of course, when I'm not chatting with you on Hail Xal'atath, you can find me on my other podcast for Azeroth, where we talk about the news and go beyond the headlines. And of course, I am streaming. You can find me and everything I do on all socials, on all platforms as True Villain Manny. That's true without the E. And so where can people find you when you're not chatting with me about the craziness of ripped up world trees and ripped up zones?
Well, you can find me right here, wherever you're watching me. So that is either on YouTube or Twitch. I will have a new video out this weekend, and I'm playing a lot of Midnight on Twitch. I'm trying to make sure that every quest I play through, I'm doing it on stream. So come join me during my Midnight streams. They're a lot of fun. And yeah, that's all. Thank you very much for joining me again. And I think now is the time for us to finally say, Hail Xal'atath!